Hello and welcome back, everybody, to the DanJohnUniversity.com podcast. I'm Dan John, and this is episode 229. And each and every week, I sit down here and answer your questions. It's a question-driven podcast. So I really appreciate it when you guys send in questions to me. The email address is podcast@danjohnuniversity.com, and I'll do my best to answer each and every question. There are certain questions that maybe I'm not qualified for, but I do my best with the big pictures of strength and conditioning. So thank you, and let's get started. We have an interesting question from Joe. Joe is a 59-year-old male. After a 20-year layoff from powerlifting, he deadlifted 660, squatted 550, bench 415 at a body weight of 232. I just got back into weightlifting. Although I haven't been lifting, I have been walking 4 to 6 miles daily with long hikes when we camp on weekends. That's not bad. Okay. My goal for this comeback is to get in better shape than I am now to prepare myself for retirement. I've been back at local rec gym for about 3 months. I have purchased and read your Easy Strength Omni book, and I'm 18 days into it, which is not bad. And thanks for letting me know that. I'm doing goblet squats, deadlift, assisted dips, two-handed kettlebell swings, and some form of weighted carry. I'm just getting all misty-eyed, the fact that you're following. And then he does a suitcase, farmers, or crosswalk with a 2-mile walk after a workout and one more in the evening. I got to tell you, Joe, that sounds a lot like what I do. That's kind of interesting. My question for you is this. What is next after Easy Strength? I heard you recommend in an earlier episode that a lifter over 60 moves into a hypertrophy workout for a few months after Easy Strength. I think that sounds great. However, I've been reading about your 10,000 swing challenge and wonder if that might be a good workout. My concern is that the 10K kettlebell swing challenge may be too much to tackle now. Yeah, that's a good point. I have been considering maybe lightening the load and turning it into a 5 to 8 challenge this first go round, then back into Easy Strength, then tackling the 10K challenge. I'm interested in hearing your thoughts. Well, my thoughts are this. Let's double check your age. You're 59. So I think you're right. So, gentle listener, I'm answering this question, but I'll make it broad enough in the answer so it'll apply for everybody. I do like the idea of, like in the winter especially, an Easy Strength program. You get in there, you get out fairly quickly. I do think, I've always thought that winter is the best time to lose body fat. And if you're doing Easy Strength and then going for a walk, especially where I live, that walk is going to be a lot more of a challenge than walking in the summer or the spring. There's all kinds of weather conditions. You're cold. Supposedly walking in the cold builds up your does something for your brown fat. And none of it matters. I just know that I think it's better to do fat loss in the winter. We can talk about that some other podcast. I'm pretty sure I have. So if you do 2 rounds of Easy Strength, that's about 4 months, and you've already done the one. The question is good. The question is this, well, after I do the 40-day workout, then what? With athletes, the then what becomes we start to channel them into an in-season training program. For general population, especially those people who do like the October, November, December Easy Strength program, a lot of them jump into the January. There's a lot of these January 1st 10,000 swing challenges, and they join one of those. And I think it does help to do it in community. A couple of years ago when I was struggling with COVID, every morning I'd get up with Nate Huey and we would do the swings together. And then I would literally fall on the couch after and sleep for about 3 hours. Probably not the smartest thing I've ever done, but I got the 10,000 done. Well, if your swing technique is good, I like where your head's at here. Let me say this. I like the idea of you doing 1 round of Easy Strength and then doing more swings. I like that idea. I have a better idea for you at 59 in just a moment. But what I would suggest doing is do it the way we originally did it. You do a set of 10 and you do some goblet squats. You do 10 swings, a few goblet squats. You do a set of 15 swings, a few more goblet squats, and maybe just go 10-15, 10-15, 10-15, and maybe just go to 250 reps. The next workout, you do a set of 10 swings, push-ups, 15 swings, push-ups, and you alternate back and forth. And keep those numbers real small. So don't, like if you can do 20 push-ups easily, then it's 5 to 10 push-ups. You're just greasing the groove with the push-ups. You could do pull-ups with this workout. You can even do marching in place, suitcase carries. You could even do deadlift and your assisted dips. For you, though, I would like you to think more about maybe hypertrophy. I am writing a book on this right now. But one of the things I think helps, especially if you've gotten your strength level back up a little bit, you've already got the walking locked in. There's 2 ways we can do this, the hypertrophy. One is stay with the same lifts you're doing. And instead of doing 2 sets of 5, move up to 3 sets of 8. Now, how's that going to work? If you're doing goblet squats, deadlift, you probably want to change the variation on the deadlift. I like rack deadlifts for people over 55. I do deficit deadlifts now because I do them swing style. So it's basically it's the way I guess a kettlebell deadlift should be done. But, I'm consciously turning it into more of a Romanian deadlift. That might be, if you know how to do it, might be a good way to do it. And then, of course, suitcase carries, those are great. But for most people, we need that same but different concept here. So after your round of easy strength, when you slide to hypertrophy, maybe you should slide over and just change the directions. Since you're doing dips, maybe a press. Since you're doing, deadlifts are fine for some people for hypertrophy. But really, just make small variations in your exercise selection. Small variations. Don't go crazy. You maybe even be able to do a few extra things. Later in this podcast, I'm going to come back to hypertrophy. But doing 6 to 8 weeks of 3 days a week hypertrophy work, where you're doing, and what I'd like you to do is a vertical push. It'd be nice if you had some kind of horizontal or vertical row, but whatever you a pull, but whatever you can do. Keep the goblet squats going, keep the deadlift variation, and maybe add something fun like curls and tricep extensions, because, and I mean this, they're fun. And if you've been powerlifting your whole life, or at least the sport, it'll be fun for you to do them. When I decided to make some real body composition changes in the late 1990s, it was 96 is when we did this. I started working my arms 3 days a week and my legs only once a week. And I got to tell you, because I was an Olympic lifter and thrower, I never worked my arms. It was fun, but I really made some nice progress in body composition. I mean, people actually noted that I look good. Now, with the face like this, if people say you look good, you got a miracle. I hope that helped. Sometimes when I answer a question, I do seem to go all over the place, but generally, if you do a round of easy strength, you can go in 2 directions after it. You can go in that kind of sport direction, which would be explosive stuff like swings, or you can go in the hypertrophy bodybuilding direction, which will be more sets, more reps, and focusing on things like call it the pump or whatever you want to call it, at the end of the lifts. Both options work really well. I will say this: the longer I do this, the more I like to think. You do 2 easy strength back to back, especially if you're doing easy strength for fat loss, and then you slide into something like you said, the 10K swing challenge. Come back to 1 round, maybe even an abbreviated round of easy strength. Move into hypertrophy. After the hypertrophy, you know where this is heading. Easy strength, explosive, easy strength, bodybuilding, easy strength, explosive, easy strength, bodybuilding. That's just one way to work. But basically, if you try that, I've almost given you an entire year of programming with very little thinking. Don't forget, finally, the workout generator at Dan John University might be the perfect thing for your hypertrophy workouts. And thank you. That was a good question. I've got a question from Oliver. I have just finished my 8-week block of easy strength and have seen great results. My football bar bench, previous shoulder injury, weighted pull-up, nice, and block pull have increased. I love the low volume approach that doesn't smash my body to pieces and allows me to pursue other hobbies with little interference. My question is in changing my deadlift variation. Being tall and having short arms, I'm not built to deadlift. No, that would be the worst thing you could have. So my hat's off to you. My next variation will be either the trap bar deadlift or heavy Romanian deadlift. The trap bar seems to have gotten a lot of criticism online. Could you weigh on its use application for a recreational lifter that just wants to get stronger, ignoring high-level application? And he finally adds this, and I appreciate this, Oliver. This is not an either or. I'm just interested. Yeah, I don't know why the hate on the trap bar lately, and it doesn't. Not everybody hates the trap bar. In fact, I know a lot of very good track and field coaches at light athletics, that are using the trap bar for everybody. In fact, they're using this jumping. It's kind of a jumping deadlift, for the explosive work. Do I like that? Yeah, of course, I like the Olympic lifts because I always know where they finish. But I listen to smart people, and one of the things I'm getting from some of them is that, especially with this generation of athletes we have, not a lot of them like to do the Olympic lifts because it hurts their wrists. Now, back in my day, when you said that the Olympic lifts hurt your wrist or elbows or shoulders, whatever it was, you'd be ridiculed, and people would say, toughen up, buttercup. That's not what they said, but it was a lot more clear than that. But so I'm to the point now that, if you've got good reasons, to not Olympic lift, don't Olympic lift. If doing high pulls doesn't work in your program with a straight Olympic bar, that's fine. If you're tall and standard deadlifts don't work, I would love to see you try a snatch grip deadlift with your body proportions. That's more of a joke. I don't think it'd be good at all. And the trap bar is there for you. Gosh, use the trap bar. Always remember, folks, these are just tools. These are tools in a toolkit. There's nothing morally superior about a hammer and a nail than a drill and a screw. They both do the basic same jobs. Sometimes they can be interchangeable and sometimes they can't. That's actually a pretty good analogy because nails and screws both can fasten, but they have different styles of doing it. But ultimately, if you're going to try to keep that wall, I don't know, whatever. If you want to keep the wall on the frame, you either have to nail it there or screw it there. It doesn't matter. So I think I stop this analogy now because I'm getting lost in it. Yeah, I don't necessarily love trap bars, but only because it's another piece of equipment. So if you have, like in the situation I used to have where I was training 60 to 70 athletes at once, I moved just to kettlebells and the straight Olympic bars. If I would have had more time there, over time, I might have invested in 7 trap bar, hex bars, whatever you call them, and be able to have one at every station. But for me, I already had the Olympic bars, so I didn't have to do a lot of extra work. They were there, they were good, here we go. We did use one. I did use it for my taller athletes who came to town to train with me. Famously, I had an NFL player who was playing for the Packers at the time. He came and trained with us for a while, and the students kept telling me, why does he get to use, the trap bar? And I always, my thought was always this, well, when you're 6'8", 315 pounds, you can use the trap bar. Yeah, none of them ever got that big. So yeah, there's great value in the trap bar. There's great value in the straight bar. There's great value in dumbbells and kettlebells and practically everything. So yeah, I like it. And for those who don't like it, I also understand why they say it. It's really important for a lot of people in the industry to stand apart. It is their, it's the mark. It's like I have a car, and on the front of the car, there's this little symbol. And on that car that's right there, it's got a different symbol in the front. And, the team I cheer for maybe wears midnight blue, and the team you cheer for wears the scarlet red. but I can see why it's important for us to differentiate ourselves from, okay, we're not like them, we're better than them. But in truth, for most people, the idea, if we can just get you to exercise, go for a walk, eat some protein and veggies and drink water, you're going to be okay. Fun question, and thank you so much. We have a question from Scott, and I think I know who Scott is. And in fact, it's good to hear from you, Scott. I have had the privilege of attending one of your family traditions, Practice Thanksgiving. My wife and I have been discussing the possibility of holding such an event ourselves, and I was wondering if you wouldn't mind sharing some details. How did this come about? It came about because I've had 2 bad Thanksgivings in my life. One was in a transition year just before I left for the Middle East, and it was just sad. And then years later, we were told we're going to have this big family Thanksgiving at this one place. And the morning of, the person called and said, Plan B, we're not doing it. You can join us though at this other place, about an hour drive from here. And it was like, let's just say there was a lot of tears in the house that day. And I said, I will never, ever, ever not have Thanksgiving in my home, which is funny because this year I had Thanksgiving in my daughter's home. What I realized on that is that sometimes a wonderful event like Thanksgiving, and it's all about giving thanks. I mean, the name is built into it, is that we don't often do it enough. So we just kind of came up with this idea that, so at Thanksgiving, we might have family only. So there's 9 people there. It could be more, it could be far less. But there's a whole bunch of people in my life that I'd love to sit around and have 6 hours of, eating food, playing games, maybe watching a dumb movie, and just basically being with, maybe drinking a little bit too much wine and having a few laughs. So we came up with this idea of Practice Thanksgiving, and it was wonderful. Generally, turkeys are very inexpensive, and I used to buy 2 or 3 of them. It wasn't so this year, I'll tell you that. And so I would store in the freezer a whole turkey, and then, somewhere around the middle of track season when, maybe the assistant coaches were having a bad week or had a friend going through some tough times, we would make a few phone calls. I'd cook the turkey. We'd set up everything, get the gravy boats out, and people would show up with, you have to show up with a vegetable dish. I really insist on people have to bring a vegetable dish. And you have to say this too clearly to them. Don't go to the supermarket and get that damn platter that has the green beans, the broccoli, the carrots, and the snap peas, or whatever it is where you live. Make a hot vegetable dish. We had to come up with a second rule years later, and that vegetable dish isn't going to be cooked at our house because we're not going to turn the oven up to 450 after the turkey's done and wait for 3 hours for your magic Brussels sprouts dish to be ready, or whatever the hell it is. So that's how it started. Okay, next question. Is it a practice run for the meals you have planned for Thanksgiving, or do you use it as an opportunity to try new things? I have tried a few new things, but mostly I know how to cook a turkey, and I know how to cook a turkey really well. I love cooking turkeys. I use, if Scott, you should remember, I have apples and citrus fruit inside, and I have cinnamon sticks. And so there's this amazing smell when you come into the house. I love cooking turkeys. So no, we know what we're doing. It's mostly for the reasons I stated above. What are some of the tips you have had to make Practice Thanksgiving a success? You got to give people some time to prep for it. You have to have a real clear, we're going to eat at 2. We're going to eat at 2. Which means you have to show up before 2. I live in Utah, and we joke around here all the time about, I won't say what we actually call it. So there's two clocks in Utah. There's clocks for people like me who show up on time, and there's clocks for a lot of other people who think if I say 2 o'clock, they think that means 6. And you have to have a hard, we're going to eat time. That's really big. If you have a dish that needs to be cooked, you need to get there early. I've had a joke. I don't know how true I hold this to you, but if you say you're going to come to practice Thanksgiving, you don't. It's going to sound horrible, people, but I don't ever invite you again because it's a lot of extra work. And maybe that's a whole other conversation for another time, Scotty. What are some of the tips you have to make practice Thanksgiving a success? Everybody has to bring a vegetable dish that's been cooked at their home, and they have to bring it. If it needs to be reheated, they have to get there early. I would suggest that the people running it do the mashed potatoes and the turkey and the gravy. That'll just make life easier. And if you do have a friend who's how do you say it's nice, total moron, total idiot, have them bring the cranberry sauce, but also buy some too, because if you're like my friends, they'll forget that. That was me. Thanks for all the work you do and best wishes for the holiday season. Well, thank you so much, Scott. So those are the basics. Folks, don't worry about the specifics of this answer. Worry about this. I think it's important we celebrate sometimes for no reason at all. If the only time you celebrate is when you win the state championship or the nationals or make the Olympic team, you're not going to have a very happy life because those don't come by very often. So I take time to celebrate life's minor victories, and that's why we do this, okay? Thank you, Scott. Great question. I enjoyed answering it. Christoph has 2 questions. Okay, so Christoph does something, and it's going to throw off some of our listeners. Christoph is quoting from my Wandering Weights newsletter. You can sign up for it at Dan John University, and if you can't figure that out, I'll figure out a way to get it to you. But I think you sign up. Go to danjohnuniversity.com. I have a weekly newsletter called Wandering Weights. I've been doing it for probably a decade, maybe close to it anyway. It's just this weekly newsletter I send out. There's no prompts. I'm not asking you for money. It's free. I share some articles I found, and that generates questions sometimes. In one newsletter I read, Bodybuilding, the endless journey to look like an athlete, which made me laugh and think how true it was. I didn't say that. Well, I might have said it, but and how true it is, and that is probably why people are drawn to train like a bodybuilder, because muscle hints functionality, which is true. And I've talked about this a lot. I remember we were moving Grandpa 2 times into the home. To the St. Joseph's villa, where he would subsequently die. And I showed up in my truck, and I'm just loading stuff in there. And this other member of the family shows up with this high, those trucks. They've got the big thing here so they can go underwater with the truck. Come on now, the big tires. He's got the racks. Well, he wouldn't allow any boxes to be put in his truck because he didn't want to scratch the paint. And I remember looking at that, thinking, I'm going to use that the rest of my career. I want a physique that looks like I could, do okay in a bar fight, do well in the Highland Games, be able to help my neighbor move groceries in, not just, I don't want to just look pretty. Trust me, I know I don't look pretty, so don't worry about it. But I prefer the look and condition of a sprinter or decathlete, okay? What are your thoughts on this topic? You probably would prefer most people to stick to push, pull, hinge, squat, loaded carry, and work on original strength while eating protein and vegetables. Not actually all at the same time, but yeah, that's exactly what I think. In my prime, when I was young and, snatching big weights, clean and jerking big weights, I didn't look very big. When I took second place in the PC2As, one of the competitors thought that I had thrown body weight. And he goes, because I threw 190, 58 meters. And I said, you think I weigh 190? And I was much bigger. I was probably somewhere between 99 and 105 kilos. So 218 to 231. And he thought that my competitors were all surprised I was that heavy. And I was like, but all my strength was in my traps, my spinal erectors, my butt, my legs, I could jump up and grab the rim with both hands, basketball rim. So yeah, I might not have looked like Mr. Universe, but if you wanted to play a pickup game of basketball or, I don't know, clear out a cellar, I was your guy. So yeah, I agree with you. I think you understood that well, Christoph. Number two, also, I read on watering weights, okay, he cut it a little tighter. We have people I know that they'll ask me about what the best whey protein is, but only sleep for 5 hours every night. They'll stay up way late, have 5 alarm clocks, stagger out of bed, stagger through their day, and drink, then ask me about whey protein versus, go to bed early and get some more sleep, which is also a great statement. Do you have recommendation on how to find out one's protein needs? Should I systematically track my protein intake and step it up with a course of a few weeks to find out? Or is a number like 1.5 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight? Well, still though. Yeah, okay, that's not bad. I want to do the math. That's not bad. How much protein should you take? Now, I hired somebody not long ago, a nutritional specialist, to look at my diet and a few other things. Shockingly inexpensive compared to a lot of other advice I get. Now, as everybody knows, I've got great nutritionists I work with, but in this case, I wanted someone a little bit. I didn't want to just ask for free advice. I wanted to pay for advice so I could get appropriate advice. When you have friends in the business, I feel I can ask a few general questions. But if I'm asking to do a lot of spreadsheets and a lot of, here's this, and have to do a lot of stuff, it's important for me to pay them. And the number that I was given for protein was I should probably get 150 grams a day. Now, it's interesting because 150 grams of protein is basically the number you have there. So for my American listeners, it's 1.5 grams per kilogram of body weight. So 150 grams of protein if you weigh 100 kilos is pretty good. That actually, it took me a moment to do that switch in my head, but that's not a bad number. That's not a bad number at all. And it ties almost exactly into what I was told. There is an issue with getting 150 grams of protein. I was just listening to these experts on this podcast that will talk about the fact that the United States government is hiding UFOs from us. That they don't believe what they don't. The way they treat science is hilarious. But when it comes to things like nutrition, then you can trust them. And the one guy recommended 235 grams of protein a day. And I was just thinking, so I always use eggs when I think of protein. Now, the amount of protein per egg, it can be low. It can be as low as 5, but generally you're thinking in that 6, 7, 8, 9, or 10. It depends. Let's just stick with 8 just for this example. So I always use 8 grams of protein in an egg as my thinking for how much protein that is a day. So if I have to get 160 grams of protein a day, that's 20 eggs in a day, I think. Yeah. 20 eggs is a lot of eggs. If I jump up to 240 grams, that's a lot of eggs. That's a lot of eggs. I have no issues with you guys eating 30 eggs a day. I just don't know how you're going to do it. I do drink, because of this now, I do drink protein shakes because that's the only way I can figure out how to get that protein up to 150. I'm experimenting with different ones. I have noticed that my body doesn't like the milky ones, so I don't have them yet, but I moved to a different kind that's a little bit, it's more like, like those drinks, the ones that you see the kids drink on commercials on TV. And if you drink this magical formula, then you high five your friend and you win a state championship. So for me, I like your little number there. If you're taking your lifting seriously, if you're getting your sleep, if you're drinking your water, if, then that 1.5 grams per kilogram of body weight is a pretty good number for the majority of the people who listen to my podcast and lift weights. So caveat, 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 caveat. It's a good number with all those caveats, okay? Good question, and I appreciate that. I love it when someone kind of quotes me back and it challenges my answers. I like that. Emil asks a question. What are your thoughts about thumbless grip pull-ups, so-called tactical pull-ups, compared to more popular full grip pull-ups? Or which grip has a better carryover to strength? What grip do you teach for beginners? The answer is pretty good. For beginners and almost everyone I work with, I like the chin-up grip. Now, you can go thumbless on the chin-up grip too. I know that, there's going to be the chin-up the nice thing about the chin-up is that it works the bicep very clearly without any twists or turns in it. Not entirely correct, but good enough for what we're doing. And for a lot of people, it becomes a real good lat exercise. Now, the pull-up is the tested one. And so if you're going to be asked to do the pull-up grip in a test, then you need to do it. I would still prefer most people to do chin-up style. If you get tested this way, and after you hit a certain age, if you can get parallel bar pull-ups. In my gym, I've got that. It's a combination of pull-up, dip, and push-up. And I do the pull-ups with the parallel grip that holds the thing you do pull-ups on. The reason you go thumbless is so that you can get yourself to here and then slide on it, do a dip, and then get on top of it. The tactical pull-up should lead to the what's sometimes called the muscle up. It is something, if you go to any gymnastics program, you'll see kids doing them within weeks. It is a practice thing. Danny Cavaldo took me aside at one of our gatherings and he gave me some ideas, and I really thought they were good. One thing he told me to do is to just either use the wall or use boxes to practice getting myself up there and just almost leaping with the box or the walls of support and get myself there so I could lock out that muscle up. So what the tactical pull-up should lead to bringing it almost, as high as you can. Perform better. They got that one guy who was doing the pull-ups and he was pulling it looked like he was pulling them to his belly button for a pull-up. It was very impressive. I do have some people in my life who can do a pull-up and go right into that muscle-up position. But that is what the tactical pull-up is for. The tactical pull-up should be, I was about to call it a baby step, but it is a stepping stone to the muscle up where you're on top of the bar like this. When I was a kid, Steve Ludwig and I, at Southwood Inn and our sophomore year at South City High, we would play around at the start of PE class and do all kinds of little muscle up, pull up kind of things. And, it'd be fun that our PE teacher, Coach Cicchetti would come out and we'd be sitting on top of the pull up bars when he came out. It's just kind of as a little joke. There's real value in it. It's a lot of fun. Muscle ups probably aren't something you're going to see a lot of Highland Game athletes do. Not a lot of top shot putters will do it, but there's great value in real life for it. So good question. Thank you. And just a real quick, Keith, you mentioned that during COVID you signed up for the MovNat workshop only to find out that you were the only, I was the only person who actually signed up for it, so they had to cancel it. I don't recall you mentioning MovNat much since. Did you ever revisit it? Were there any movement principles from MovNat that you carried over your strength training? I was just curious. Keith, yeah, I signed up for the workshop and they canceled it. They said they'd reach back out to me. They did not. For another one, I would have happily traveled anywhere. And that's where it ends. Since that time, I've spent a lot more time with Tim Anderson's Original Strength. I've gotten back in the coaching track and field. So I spend a lot more time with, the discus shot, hammer and javelin and the weight. So no, I haven't followed up on it. Like a lot of the stuff that kind of jumped up about, no boy, 15 years ago now. That it seems like a lot of that stuff everyone was doing all this stuff, and now it just starting to kind of disappear again. I feel that the training I tell you to do, the push, pull, hinge, squat, loaded carry, the walking, the sprinting, the playing, is pretty foundational also, okay? Thank you. That's it. Thank you, Keith. We got a question from Andy. He's an aging runner. He's 57 years old, 5'10", and 168 pounds. And I'm wondering if I know him too. After a few years away from racing, I've been trying to build up this winter for a mile race next May. So my legs are usually tired. In the past, I've successfully combined easy strength deadlifts with serious running, and I've never found another leg program that works for me. Well, and part of the reason easy strength would be so good for you, Andy, is that's what Percy Sarity did. He did the deadlift with his athletes. And remember, he expected marathoners to pull a double body weight deadlift. And I find that funny still, is that I get so much pushback. I'll get a little email. I train weights 3 days a week at, this famous gym in this area, and I can't deadlift, double body weight. And yet some skinny marathoner can. I mean, sometimes you got to put weight on the bar. I run in the morning or at lunchtime to take use of daylight, soft surfaces, and higher energy levels. And I usually do deadlifts, presses, and pull-ups in the garden shed, either before or an hour after dinner, following the rule of 10. I'm 3 weeks into an easy strength cycle now. I'd like to increase my press. Do you see a downside to low volume, easy strength style deadlifting for the legs, but more volume for the upper body in the same time? So combining easy strength with hypertrophy. Now I'm writing on a book right now, and it's gotten hard for me to do it because it's just so natural for me to answer these questions in a flow. But when I go to write them down, it's like I get all those counter arguments in my head, and I have a hard time sometimes. Yeah, you can. In fact, you might find some real value to it. I would recommend, Andy, on the deadlifts, stay with the rule of 10. And on the presses, go back to the good old-fashioned Captain Dr. Tom DeLorme, 3 sets of 8, minute rest, 2 weeks of 3 sets of 8, 2 weeks of 3 sets of 10, 2 weeks of 3 sets of 12. Basically what we do in the workout generator over at danjohnuniversity.com. And, I would say, don't overthink it too much. Now, if you're going to be doing the military, I'd also recommend you do barbell curls with it. This is part of a program I call Transformation Program. And by the way, it's the roots of the new book. But the barbell press combined with the bodybuilding style curls. So 3 sets of 8, minute rest with both. Make sure you remember, you only judge load on that last set of 8, and trust me, you're not going to, and it's gonna be harder than you think. But yeah, I think I think it's a really good idea. When you look at easy strength, just remember the idea behind easy strength is get as strong as you can with the least amount of wear and tear on your brain and body. And with hypertrophy, you're chasing some different things, but I think it'll work out just fine. Andy, please get back to me on this. I'm interested in see how this goes for you, okay? Thank you. Josh has a question. He's a big, tall guy, 198 centimeters, so almost 2 meters, 16 stone. I think we got somebody either from England, Scotland, Wales, or someplace close. He's a second row in rugby, obstacle course races, trails, ultras, biking, running, lifting, boot camps, and trail events. Build up. I've just turned 50 and been struggling with my A1C levels, pre-diabetic, for 3 to 4 years. I eat healthy, mostly homemade, high fiber diet, limit alcohol, monitor my sleep patterns, and intermittent fast, and I'm now working on reducing weight, to reduce my A1C. Again, 225 pounds, which makes for a high BMI, and body fat percentage in upper teens. Remember, I don't I don't necessarily believe in BMI. I think it's just a bunch of numbers thrown against the wall. But thank you. Okay. So we have a question that's sliding on medical advice. But one thing about pre-diabetes is that we do have a lot of tools in the toolkit now, and they're very, very inexpensive. I hope you're seeing a doctor. There are some very inexpensive tools for you now that will make a huge difference. Now with A1C, that's what all these new big diet weight loss pills is based on bringing down. But there's also older medicines based on I'm not going to tell you the medicine, but they are based on the French lilac bush, and they're over a century old now, and they work quite well. Please see a doctor. I would just pay if I don't know what your your insurance situation is, but it's very inexpensive, and I mean it's 3 or 4 cents a day for me. I mean that's it's not even a beer in London. In your opinion, in a month of the pill isn't a beer in London. So, in your opinion, do you think intermittent fasting is limiting my potential for protein intake and muscle growth? That's why I wanted to stop and talk about the diabetic stuff, because you talked about this and then you jumped into IF. Intermittent fasting is one of the best things I've ever done in my life. There are some caveats behind intermittent fasting. The only one is this. There's good research and there's good experiential research that it works, and it works really well. The problem is we're not yet there, I think, with enough information about whether it does help with longevity. I think the evidence is there. If you go to the religious parts of the world where people take fasting seriously, their longevity is good. Now you got to be careful about everything I just said, because it's asterisk, caveat, everywhere. But intermittent fasting, there's no ironclad. It will change your longevity. For health, I don't think there is a question. And so intermittent fasting in your case might be good. Again, please consult some medical experts on this. I do know one of the things, since my nutritionist advisor told me to go more protein every day, it has been much harder for me to figure out my intermittent fasting, because it's no longer, back when it was, I was fasting 12, 14, 15 hours, 16 hours every single day. But for me to get 150 grams of protein in those 8 hours means I have to work hard to get them. I don't necessarily know if that 30 grams a meal thing is true or a myth. I don't know. But it is hard to get that amount of protein in that quick. And the final thing here, my routine is a fasted workout and then usually continue with my fast post so he keeps fasting after the workout for a few hours to meet the 15-hour fast rule. It's going to come down to this, my friend Josh. Let's get you to and have a good medical exam. Get your fasting, glucose, get all those things. There's a whole bunch of other equipment now. Get that done and then have that conversation. It might be something as simple as the addition of some little intervention every day might take care of all that A1C stuff, and you might still be able to just enjoy what you're doing right now. Medical intervention first, and then we'll talk about the addition of more protein or not. Well, that was fast. That was very fast. Listen, I'm Dan John. Each and every week I sit down here and I answer your questions. There weren't very many this week. I'm sure, I don't know when this is coming out, but as we're doing this, it is the holiday season, so not a lot of people are asking questions. But if you have questions, you'll send them to me, podcast@danjohnuniversity.com, and I'll sit down here and answer each and every one. And as I always say, until next time, Let's all keep on lifting and learning. Thank you so much.